Hi everyone, Patrick Marks here. Thanks for watching. Today's topic, is it the end of the world? And if it is, should we feel fine? Anyway, answering this question is actually answering the sixth of the six fundamental or foundational beliefs that the earliest Christians said, hey, this is what you gotta believe if you're gonna be a Christian. You can remember these six things from the word Christ, C-H-R-I-S-T. And the T in Christ stands for trial. And it's a simple fact of history that the earliest Christians did believe and teach that Jesus is gonna come again. When Jesus comes back to this planet, there's gonna be a trial and God is gonna be the judge. Anyone who turned around from a self-directed life and said, all right, God, I'm going to make you the Lord and King of my life and trust you to forgive me from my sins, they get to go to heaven. Anyone who ignored God, made up their own gods, decided, yeah, I'm going to trust in my own goodness, or they rejected Jesus in some way, those kind of people, they're going to be judged as guilty of their sins and they're going to be separated from God forever. Jesus said in John chapter 14, verse 3, that if I go away to prepare a place for you, I'm going to return again to receive you to myself, so that where I am, there you can be also. In other words, it is true that Jesus did promise that he was going to come back, and he made that promise about 2,000 years ago. So of course that means that we are 2,000 years closer to the end of the world today than we were back then. Now, there's been all kinds of movies and TV shows and things that are depicting the end of the world, or at least a throwback to the Stone Age. In fact, it's become the in thing for actors to be running around getting all dirty with bows and arrows and fighting over a can of tuna. Even people who don't believe in God know that we can't sustain this very long. All it's going to take is one terrorist with a nuke to blast us back into the Stone Age. And that seems pretty likely. I mean, when you think about history, there's only been about 100 years in the last 5,000 years of recorded human history where we haven't been at war with one another somewhere. That's not a very good track record, and when you think about the fact that we have bombs today that can destroy just about everything on this planet except for maybe cockroaches and Twinkies, it's only a matter of time before something really bad happens. So the Bible does teach that the world had a beginning and it will have an end. You can find all sorts of scriptures about what the Bible has to say about the end of the world in places like the book of Ezekiel and Isaiah and Revelation. But many of these scriptures are filled with symbols, and they're actually a recording of a dream or something like that, so they can be interpreted in different ways. So there's a lot of different ideas about what's going to happen next when you ask Christians about the end of the world. In fact, there's really only two things that all Christians can say for absolutely certain. All Christians, all biblical Christians, believe that Jesus is coming again, and we don't know when. In fact, Jesus himself said in Matthew chapter 24, verse 36, that no one knows when Jesus is going to return again. Not even the angels in heaven. Only God the Father knows that date. So that means that if you run into somebody that says, hey, I figured out the scriptures and I know that Jesus is going to come back next Tuesday, you can know for sure that Jesus is not coming back that next Tuesday. The Bible also says that the return of Jesus Christ is going to be like lightning flashing across the sky. It's going to be something that nobody misses. When Jesus comes back, he's going to split the sky down the middle, and that's going to be the end of history. Now, there's a lot of ideas about what's going to happen just before Jesus comes back, and that really divides Christians up into basically four schools of thought. Now, each one of these schools of thought has a really fancy name, but don't let that freak you out. It's actually pretty simple. Now, some people have built entire empires on their ideas, and they've really freaked out a lot of people with their predictions of earthquakes and plagues and horrible things and antichrists and all that sort of stuff. And it could be, based on these scriptures, that some bad things are going to happen prior to the return of Jesus Christ. But I don't think it's something that we should be divided over, because basically the bottom line is Jesus is coming back. Now, the first of these schools of thought is called amillennialism. All millennialists think that when Jesus comes back, that's going to be the end of history and that's it, end of story. The second group of people are called dispensational premillennialists. Now, I think you should be able to get an A on a test just for saying that word, much less understanding what they mean. Basically, the premillennial dispensationalists believe that Jesus is going to basically snatch all Christians away in a big event called the rapture just before a really horrible time period called the Great Tribulation. After 7 years of the Great Tribulation, they believe Jesus is going to come back, there's going to be a trial, and Jesus is going to have a kingdom here on earth that's going to be for 1,000 years. A third group of people are called historical premillennialists. These guys don't think there's going to be a rapture of Christians right before the Great Tribulation. They just think he's simply going to return and then there's going to be 1,000 years reign where Jesus is the king here on earth. The fourth group of people are called postmillennialists, and they believe that the Christian missionaries going out telling people about Jesus are going to be incredibly successful. Things are going to get better and better and better, and then eventually Jesus is going to return. Now, there's a whole lot more to talk about on all four of these schools of thought, something I can't cover in just 7 minutes. In fact, within each of these groups, there's some differences of opinion. It can get really confusing really fast, but I hope there's one thing that you have noticed that is common to all of them. And I really think this is the bottom line. Jesus is coming back. I don't know when, and neither do you. So maybe we should start a fifth group and call ourselves the Pan-Millennialists. And we believe that it's going to pan out one way or another, so why get sweating over the small stuff? Because one way or another, biblical Christians believe that every human being is going to have to answer for their life in front of the living God. There's a whole lot more to talk about when it comes to what Christians believe, so I would encourage you to subscribe to this channel. And go ahead and click on the like button too, and I'll just keep explaining stuff. And don't forget to be good, don't do anything evil, and we'll see you next time.